Oh, it's pretty cool. They've had a great trip. The Hawaii trip.
Oh, I know.
Like,
I haven't seen the bill yet.
I haven't seen it yet either. We'll see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys are upward bound for basketball, so I didn't know there was a fitness facility in there. I dropped my daughter off one time and yeah, she's like, you can just go up and do the track, and I'm like, all right. So it was nice, yeah. Yeah, it was nice. Yeah, I did some, yeah, it was great. So I told my wife after that, I'm like, I'll take my community practice every Monday now. What did they? Well, they were practicing on the basketball, so then they didn't have, but yeah. But no, pickleball's pickleball place, I guess, is never, yeah, but it's a different demographic than me, unfortunately. I played, we had a teacher tournament. It was fun. I never really played before.
I got 3 too. I used to have 2, and then I moved 2 horizontals like this.
Pickleball's fun. I mean, it's just,
I like it.
it's just not that people play it. Yeah. No, not, that's the things I used to do. So it took me a while. I'm so used to like.
You
this.
can't.
No, I know, yeah.
It's still not, it doesn't-
Yeah.
You ready?
Oh, yeah. No more. Right there. Can't see it, right? Lean forward, yeah.
Nice.
Good evening and welcome to the planning and zoning meeting for May the 28th, 2024. And we're going to get started with the approval of the minutes from last meeting, last month. And have you had a chance to look at those, and are they correct? Are there anything that needs to be changed? If,
I'll move to approve the minute.
okay, have
I'll second.
Okay, have. Okay. Roll call, Megan, please.
Lucy Colbert,
Aye.
Jeff Pierce is absent, Adam Ryan,
Aye.
Susan Daniels,
Aye.
Chad Dickerson,
Aye.
Calvin Colbert,
Aye.
Keith Renfro,
Aye.
and Trevor
Aye.
Okay. We don't have any scheduled visitors or guests, and we don't have any unfinished business, so we'll go right to new business, which is zoning amendment 24-0006. Property owner is Counts Holding LLC to C. The property location is lot 155 of Old World Estates, Phase 2. Existing zoning is PUD C2, which is general commercial, and proposed zoning is PUD R1 P 2-family patio homes. Cameron?
Yes, just to let the commission know, before we get started, we do have a new time clock, 5 minutes for the speakers when they come to the podium to speak. So on top of the dais that's there in front of you, there's a green light that'll light up, then a yellow light when it's 1 minute before it expires, then the red light goes red. 2 minutes or? Oh. Solid.
and then votes.
Yep.
Great.
So over there, Megan will be controlling the time clock, but it shows you guys the lights when it's warning time for the speakers. With that, we have two zoning amendments on the packet this evening, along with an ordinance change, but the two zoning amendments are related to one another. The first application is to rezone lot 155 of Old World Estates from a PUD C2 general commercial to R1P two-family patio home district. The R1P patio homes are two attached single-family dwellings. The existing zoning districts within the Old World Estates includes R1C single-family and R1P patio homes as well, and the C2 general commercial districts, which are the two applications this evening. The property is currently vacant. There are no overlay districts that affect this property. The property can be serviced by city water and sewer and has capacity to be extended to the development by the developer's cost. The original development did include the required stormwater hydrology report and traffic study that will be reviewed and updated as necessary upon approval of this rezoning application. The original development as well looked at the surrounding zonings, but the surrounding zoning is single-family residential to the north, commercial to the east, commercial to the south, and single-family residential to the west. The comprehensive plan did recommend a future land use of single-family residential, as this zoning request does conform to that plan. If approved, then a preliminary plat application would come at a later date to the commission for consideration. Based on the staff report and findings, all requirements have been met. In addition, as I stated before, the preliminary plat would be coming forward at a later time. Also, in looking at the code and amending the amendment hearing guidelines, under the comprehensive plan section, the comprehensive plan does recommend goal number 1 as a diversify housing options in the city. Objective 1 is diversify housing by allowing a range of housing types and styles. This application would conform to that recommendation of the comprehensive plan. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Commissioner have any questions? Nope. Okay. Is there a representative for Counts? You, David Count?
No.
Okay.
Hi, Will Hoy, 550 St. Louis Street, Springfield. I'm with Olson. I'm here on behalf of Counts. Again, as Cameron mentioned, we're looking to rezone lot 155 and 156 to get the C2 away and bring in the R1P zoning, which kind of conforms closer to what's on the south side of Athens Street. But I'd be happy to answer any questions that the commission has.
Questions?
We'll do it later.
Yeah, don't we do that later? Questions?
Okay. Thank you. We'll call you back if
Thank you.
we have some more questions. And is there anyone that would like to speak in regards to this in the audience? Okay, if you'll come forward one at a time and give your name and your address, please. And you have 5 minutes and get to see the ticker.
Hello, I'm Sean Milbank. I live at 4230 Tuscany Circle. So just barely in the photo there. Our community has talked a lot about this specific change, and of the options presented, seems like the best one. Along Athens, they're all duplex homes. So adding these 2 additional plats, having them also be duplex homes looks just fine. In total, I saw, I think, a preliminary drawing that put 8 patio homes together, so 16 lots. Overall, we have 330 lots total, so we're looking at like less than 10% increase. I know there's been discussion about maybe the pool being overcrowded or the amenities being overcrowded, but an increase of 10% isn't crazy. I think from a financial aspect, the only question we have is that I think 2 years ago, an amendment was filed that said that patio homes would be assessed together. So as a community, we pay $250 a lot, and then the patio homes are a combined $250. So there's a bit of a financial discrepancy where each lot gets 1 vote, 1 access to the pool, but some lots pay full price and others pay half. So we're allowed to increase the dues by 15, and we've been doing that for the patio homes, just so there's a fairness aspect to it. But adding more homes along Athens that do the same isn't really a change. So as far as things go, it seems super reasonable. So I think that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Well, good evening.
Your name and address, please.
Oh, I was waiting on the clock. My name is John Woosley. My address is 4438 Venice Avenue, Ozark, Missouri, 65721. Thank you so much for taking time tonight to consider the amendment. I shall say again, and I have several points to make for this, but I will just come right now and say I am opposed to the change. So I'm here to say keep things the way that they are, and for several reasons. So number one, promises were not made by this developer for our neighborhood. Now he wants to make a change again. This change was discussed on April 17, 2023 in this exact chambers with the city council, where it was denied. So here we are a little over a year again with the same situation. Some of the things you've heard as far as the pool, we have an HOA. Houses pay one rate, patio homes pay another rate. This would just add additional residents already to a pool area that many would say does not accommodate for the size of the neighborhood. So this would add upwards of 40 to 50 people total for that part. Traffic concerns with additional people coming in could be an issue right there too. And as far as the current status of the development, the developer as recently as May 19th did not even take care of the lot being an empty lot. Weeds were a foot high. I'm happy to report today it was cut sometime within the last 9 days. So again, I just have some concerns as far as what the developer originally told us. When we bought our homes, there was a plat map that said this is what it's going to be. And now that wants to be changed. Why would he make a change? I don't know. We'll have to ask him. My guess would be money, because the property owner feels that the property would be more valuable in a different zoning than the current zoning that was already approved by you guys as the board of planning and zoning, but then also at the city council level. So as I said, here we go again with the same thing. If the developer wanted to make 16 more patio homes when he developed the neighborhood, why didn't he just draw up the plans with 16 more patio homes at that time? There was a reason to not do it that way. So now we have this change. And again, I can't tell you the reason. I don't own the properties. I'm not one to say what a property owner should or should not be able to do with their property. But what I can say is that when they developed the land, this is how they set it up to be. This is what was approved. This is what everybody agreed to have. So now they want to make a change. What's in the best interest of the property owner? What's in the best interest of the citizens, the residents in this neighborhood? But then also what's in the best interest for the city of Ozark, right? So when we talk about money being a factor for the property owner, as far as what's the best use for that property, from a city standpoint, you also look at that from a tax standpoint. What's the best way for the city to benefit as a whole for that property? Today, we're not even talking about what the other options for that property would be. We know it's a commercial zoning. We know from reading in our CCRs, from talking with the developer when we bought our homes, what those potential items would be. And at no point was it, let's have 16 more patio homes in that on those two lots. The other part that I have concern with is that we're talking about two lots right now, and we're talking about changing those to be patio homes. So there's going to have to be an additional discussion, an additional approval to chop up those two lots into more, right? Because the developer's not going to put two patio homes on one lot and two patio homes on the other lot. From reading your packets, we all know what the ultimate plan is going to be, but that's not even what's on the agenda for tonight. The agenda tonight is just to say, are we going to leave it as the way it is, or are we going to change it to what the developer wants it to be for whatever reason? Again, I would imagine it's the best financial use of the land for himself, not necessarily what's best for the people in the neighborhood, the people of Ozark, for that part. So again, I ask you to think carefully before you make your vote tonight. And really factor in as far as how will this affect everybody, not just the one property owner for that. Thank you for your time and have a wonderful evening.
My name is Trisha Smith and I live in Old World. I'm also on the HOA board. Sean's also on the HOA board and so is Stephen. We're here to represent 3 of the 4 members. I agree with everything that Sean said. We support, I've had conversations with David.
Could you please give your address?
4285 Sienna Avenue.
Thank you. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I've had some conversations with David Counts, prior to this meeting and our understanding is that he wants to do the patio homes and that would be part of our covenant. And we'd be able to control that as we control the other homes in the neighborhood with keeping things nice. We don't know what can happen with commercial. We don't know if there'd be loudness. We don't know his intentions. He has said possibly a strip mall, something center with businesses. We personally on the board don't support that. Would like to have it to be the patio homes so that it all is inclusive with our neighborhood and that we are able to have that in our covenant and help control things within our neighborhood there. So just here to support that, we would like to support his idea of the patio homes. Thanks.
Evening. I'm Stephen Starr. I live at 4602 East Palmer Court in Old World Estates. I too am on the board, and of the neighbors that I've spoke to in our area about this proposed change, they all seem to be in favor of it. We've had discussions as to what the other alternatives would be if it was to become a commercial zone. And everyone seems to think this is our neighborhood. This is where houses are. This is where people live. And that's what they want to maintain. And then just looking at the map up there, that's just an unfinished piece of the pie. You know, we see the whole complete section. It's like, it just fits. And I just want to say that we, as a board member, I do stand in agreement with Sean and Trisha there and in support of this recommendation to change the zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Not seeing any movement. I'll ask the commission if they have any questions. Comments, discussion? Yes, Chad.
Got a question for Cameron. Can you remind us when this came back, when this came to the commission for the first time back in April of last year? Were they requesting R3? Do you remember?
That is correct.
Okay. Yes. So thanks, Cameron. I'll just add a couple comments. I mean, currently it's zone C2, which could be any number of uses. You know, which probably have be a lot more intense, a lot more traffic generated than a residential use. I think coming back with the patio homes is a better fit than the R3, and it fits right in with the Ozark comprehensive plan that it recommends the future land use as single family residential. So I was glad the board came out to speak towards the case and appreciate that. But this sounds like a reasonable request to me.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then I would entertain a motion.
I just have
Okay,
a
sorry.
question for Cameron. I noticed at the end of the planned unit development, it points out the 20-foot buffer yard between tract 1 and tract 3, this particular parcel being part of tract 3. Is that part of this proposal, or is that already part of the zoning for this being C2, or is that a proposed change also in changing this from C2 to R1P? Because I noticed the proposed amendment for track 3 has on number 1, the 20-foot buffer yard, and it's proposed. So I just didn't know if that changes with this or if that's already existing.
Yeah, the actual buffer yards are already completed and are in place. They were actually completed prior to recording the final plat.
Okay.
So they are in place and they would apply to this as well.
Okay, so no change. It's the same buffer yard for either. Okay.
I'll move to approve zoning amendment 24-0006 based on council recommendation.
I'll second.
Roll call, Megan, please.
Adam Brown,
Aye.
Jeff Garrison is absent, Susan Daniel. Aye. Keith Renfro,
Aye.
Jack,
Aye.
Trevor Branch,
Aye.
Lacy Fuller,
Aye.
Alan
Aye.
Okay. And as Cameron had mentioned, zoning amendment 24-0007 is continuation of the same parcel, and again, it's same information. Counts Holdings, and it's lot 156, Old West Estates, and the same zoning request. Cameron, do you have any additional comments?
The only difference between this one and the prior one is just the neighboring uses. Just to highlight those, the surrounding zoning is commercial to the north, commercial to the east, industrial to the south, and single family residential to the west. Other than that, it's the same findings of the previous application.
Okay. And would you like to make any further comments?
I don't have any additional comments, but would love to answer any questions if you have any.
Okay. You need naming it. Okay. Thank you. If there's any questions, we'll call. And is there anybody in the public that would like to speak for or against this amendment?
For the record, my name is still John Woosley, same address, 4438 Venice Avenue, Ozark, Missouri, 65721. I realize I spoke at the earlier, however, it is set up as two separate items, so I assume that means you're granted the additional time.
Yes.
One thing that I didn't say in my earlier comments is, as you can see on the maps highlighted, the surrounding property along 22nd Street is already a commercial property. So keeping this as a commercial property does maintain that same area. If you look across the street, I know it's not noted here, there's a automotive body shop right across the street. That's commercial property. So I don't think that there's necessarily a compromise that you could approve one and not approve the other. If you want to grant them to build on one lot, I'm not gonna try to dream that you're not gonna approve the exact same thing for the other lot. The only difference is that because there's a road separating, it becomes two separate lots. Therefore, we talk about this two separate times. But I can't see keeping commercial property for one, but then allowing additional patio homes for the other. Again, we have so many patio homes already in the neighborhood. I don't see adding 16 more, adding value to our neighborhood. I don't see adding 16 more with additional people now joining the HOA, now collecting HOA dues for a pool use. I mean, really, I don't know if any of you guys live in the neighborhood, but that's really the only amenity there. The developer had made promises, made notations in the CCRs about common areas, about playgrounds, about all this other stuff that would be there. And the city council and maybe you guys had to approve this part too, but the pool wasn't even done when phase 2 was being completed for the neighborhood. The only reason the pool got done is because the city had to force the developer to do what he already was supposed to have done. They threatened to withhold certificates of occupancy for people trying to close on their home, for their dream homes. And for them to then not be not even know, am I gonna close on Friday because the developer hasn't finished the pool that he was supposed to finish who knows how long ago? I just don't feel that there's a lot of trust for this developer with these lots. If he wanted to make 16 more patio homes when he plotted out the land, just carve up 16 more lots. That wasn't done. There was a reason that these 2 lots were saved for commercial. And I say, let's see what happens with them. Let's see. What do you want to put in there? We already know with it being attached to a neighborhood, there's certain things that cannot go in on that property, right? A strip mall was mentioned. Okay, build one. We have a strip mall down the street with a coffee shop and an insurance agent office. You can do the same thing with these same lots here. That'll generate a lot of revenue for the city. That'll provide value for the current property holder. By cutting up the properties and making 16 more properties, you're just adding more and more patio homes to a single family neighborhood with a small sliver of patio homes. This is just going to increase more patio homes. You mentioned traffic counts. There's going to be 16 to 32 more cars parked there every day with additional homes. If you have an insurance office agent, Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, yeah, there'll be some traffic. There's not going to be cars parked overnight all the time. The insurance office agent or the coffee shop employees, they're not going to go to the neighborhood pool because they won't be part of the neighborhood. They won't have access to those type of things. So again, I know you've already made your vote for the first. I understand that. I know formalities, you're going to take a second vote. I also know that there's the first reading and the second reading set up for the city council. And I'll be happy to come and speak with him again at that point as well too. But again, I thank you for your time. And I just ask that you think about not just the people in the room, not just the people in the neighborhood, but also the city of Ozark, all the residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hello, Sean Milbank again, 4230 Tuscany Circle. So my house currently, my backyard overlooks 22nd, and I'm a stay-at-home dad, so I'm there constantly. And really the only traffic I hear is from the boat trailers driving through every once in a while, because there's those semis with like 8 or 10 of them or something. I think that's Tracker. So as far as like road noise and traffic, I live on 22nd and don't experience it. In the initial design I saw, and that's not necessarily finalized, the plat that's already approved was designed to have a road that goes up. So it's going to increase the overall surface parking, and mostly on Athens, people park in their driveways anyways. There's enough setback for that. So the one we're talking about, the initial proposal I saw put 3 patio homes on there. So we're looking at, 6 lots total. Those are not small units. They're almost as big or as big as some of the single family homes. And the selling price is fantastic on those. And there's a lot of rental options available. Currently on Athens, I would say more than half are rentals, but maybe just barely. I've been handing out pool keys for the last 2 weeks and working with management companies and rentals and stuff like that. And it's really reasonable, and there's nice families moving in there. So along Athens, as far as the board goes, we don't get significant complaints from that street. So I don't think the addition of the second plat either is going to be a cause for a lot of complaints or traffic or anything like that. Athens itself is kind of quiet. And I know there's, distrust with counts overall, but the plats described don't have any common area usage. So they're going to get broken up, and then either he's going to put a home on it or it's going to get sold to a developer. So his involvement overall is going to be selling the land. We have 1 home still under construction, and we have 1 home in the neighborhood that's just a yard still. We don't have any construction on there. So the other piece of the community isn't yet finished. So I don't expect that these additional homes are going to be all that exciting, because the second plat, we're talking about 6 total lots, if that's what I've seen. So seems reasonable, more or less kind of the same comments.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
Steve Starr, 4602 East Palma Court. And just to reiterate what we said earlier, it's part of just finishing the project is the way I see it, my neighbors that I've spoken to. And the traffic, I live back on Palma Court and I come in and out of the main entrance there on Monte Carlo. And I've never had a traffic issue. The biggest issue, I think, is maybe some of the kids on their bicycles. But that's what we live there for. We want to be in a nice residential family community. And that's what we have. And I think the addition of these few extra units, especially as close as they are to the exit, really isn't going to have any bearing. And it'll just also give us an improved appearance out onto 22nd Street. You come in off Monte Carlo and it's a beautiful entrance there. Old World Estate signage and lights and things like that and vegetation. And I'm sure that that's what we'll have up here and it'll just kind of finish it all off and just be the crown on it, if I could say that. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no movement, I'll close that section and ask if there's any questions. Eddie, go ahead.
So I have a point of inquiry. So I'm looking at I guess the master plan. And on the master plan, what we talked about first, I have labeled as 156. And what we're talking about now, I have labeled as 157. It's probably about 6 pages maybe before this, if you want to scroll up. So I was just curious if that was, I think it's that one. Yeah. So see up there, it says 156 and 157. Is that out of date or? Because we just voted on what's labeled as 156. So we talked about as 155. So I just wanted to check on that. Okay, yeah, sorry. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because 155 is labeled as a little small house there, that one of the single family right there, yeah. So I didn't know if we need to go back and the previous was 156. Sorry, it's my math tendencies and.
Next, we've got the one that's on the agenda and then the one that's on the
Yeah,
plot plan.
and that's what I'm wondering, was that an update? Because I saw it was from
Yeah.
2018.
May-
Okay, so then that, I just wanted to double check, so.
So that is correct. Right. So
I just want to make sure.
What do you say? That's the way to tell.
And so,
Okay, that's fine. I just want to double check because I noticed the discrepancy, so
okay.
that's what I had.
Thank you. Yeah.
Cameron, I have 2 questions. One is, again, with the buffer yard, there's gonna be a buffer yard between 150, the parcel we're talking about. And to the left there, and that's already completed as well. So
Yeah.
even though it's patio home to possible patio. home.
That is correct, and I probably should have clarified earlier, but the buffer yard is there in place already when it was commercial to residential. The buffer yard will remain there, however, since this is R1P, it would have been required to originally have the buffer yard, but it is existing at this time.
So then my follow-up question, with that being industrial below it, is there any requirement for the buffer yard between this parcel and the industrial?
Generally, in our standard ordinances, there is a requirement for a buffer yard. However, when this PUD is originally written, it did not identify that required buffer yard.
Oh, and the other thing I was going to ask, that he brought up a sign to the entrance to the neighborhood. With this changing now and with the current ordinance, is another sign going to be required if this is changed to R1P?
No, even with the new ordinance that we'll be reviewing this evening that's not in place, it only requires one sign at the main entrance. So
Okay.
this would not require an additional sign.
Okay. That's the only questions I had.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Comments? Trevor, Everybody good? Okay. And I will entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve zoning amendment 24-0007 based on staff recommendations.
Okay,
Second.
okay. Megan, roll call, please.
Keith Renfro,
Aye.
Alan Goldberg,
Aye.
Susan Daniel,
Aye.
Lacy Goldberg,
Aye.
Adam Brown,
Aye.
Jeff Harrison. And that, Trevor Branch,
Aye.
and Patrick.
Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to item number C tonight, an ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, chapter 410 subdivision regulations. Cameron, you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, just to touch on a few highlight updates since the last time the commission has looked at the ordinance. So a couple key things. Something that we've added in this ordinance, and we'll run through those, but if a subdivision is proposing private streets, we are requiring those private streets to be built to a public standard. So they would still accommodate and be constructed to our public works design standards. We've moved the section dedicated to public use. We just moved that up into the section of the code under the preliminary plat versus the final plat. And then in addition, originally we had noted all the requirements for preliminary plat submittal and final plat. A lot of it's the same, so we consolidate it to the preliminary plat and just note in the final plat that all the items required in preliminary plat shall be submitted as well. So then just going through the ordinance and in your packet, you should see some highlighted change or underlined and color changes. We did clarify in the minor and the cul-de-sac links. We updated that from 800 to 750. That is similar to our public works design standards. We're not quite sure where the 800 came from, but we're just trying to coordinate those two to be consistent. And then moving forward, just making references to the current edition of the design standards of the public works design standards here at the city of Ozark. Moving forward. Again, a reference to an article under the preliminary plat on page 5. Just a cleanup of verbiage on page 6. Similar on page 7, just had a couple word changes. And then under item 2, you'll see the reference to a code section, updating those numbers there to be correct. Page 8, there were some references to some MoDOT real-time networks used in lieu of GRS monuments. We have confirmed with the city staff to confirm that that's no longer needed in there. We are accommodating following the standards for our datum. Again, I mentioned the section about private streets. So under streets, we make reference to if the developer is going to propose private streets, they shall be built to a public standard. Again, just a few updates with some verbiage and then a reference to a code section on page 9. Talked about the dedicated property that was already in the ordinance. Again, we just moved it up in the under preliminary plating. Just noting some requirements with the preliminary plat submittal. Subdivision signs, we made reference. It didn't have in there that at the time of submitting for final plat, some of the elements have to be completed prior. We just noted that the subdivision sign shall be completed as well before a final plat is submitted for approval. Just some verbiage updates, nothing major there, just some minor changes. And then, as I noted earlier, when they submit for a final plat, we just made the note, in addition to all the standard requirements in the preliminary plat, those shall be completed as well for final plat. It removed 2-3 pages of the ordinance section after we consolidated that. Again, that stricken is just where we moved that language up. Just some update references to code sections now that we've got the numbers codified. We use that again, just a number update. Made reference to our third-party reviewers and city staff's review for submittals of site plans. It made reference to the planning and development department. Actually, it's several departments along with some outside partners and then our third-party reviewers. And just a cleanup of some verbiage there. I think that's all the highlighted changes since the last time the commission has reviewed the ordinance. With that, be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for all your hard work on this.
Thanks. It's not just me.
Yeah, well, the
Megan,
team. I mean,
Megan and Public
yeah, no, I
Works
mean,
and everyone.
yeah, it's been a lot, yeah.
Yeah. So do we have any questions?
I got a question, Cameron, maybe for Jeremy, but I'm glad to see you added a requirement for private streets to be built to city standard. I think that's important. Will the city, Public Works, will they inspect that construction or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, we will send our inspectors out there and make sure that they follow our complete design standards.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Cameron, do we need to go ahead and vote on this or?
Probably open up for any public comment and then close and then we'll.
Okay, yeah. Is there anyone in the public that would like to speak to the ordinance or the amendments? For or against? Seeing no movement, I will close the public session. And open it up.
We don't need to vote.
We don't vote on this?
Yeah, let's just think more.
What's
It's
that?
informing us, right?
No, we are asking for action at the commission.
Asking for-
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Yep.
Asking for an amendment. Motion.
I got some real quick. Hey, on section 410.040, there's just a misspelling. The should have an E at the end. Sorry, once again, it's my grammar thing. That's what happens when you put a teacher on here.
We will start sending all ordinances.
Yeah,
to
dude,
you
that's
to
fine, yeah.
read.
So I'll take $30 an hour, that's fine.
This was your fourth time reviewing it though, I would say.
It's the summertime, like the kids are gonna have more time.
Sorry.
All right, fine.
Said 410.040 or 040, yeah. That's what I was going to.
I'll move to approve section, the updated 405.870.
Okay. Have a motion, second?
I'll second.
Okay. Megan, roll call, please.
Jeff Hudson, Adam Brown,
Aye.
Keith Renfro,
Aye.
Trevor Branch,
Aye.
Susan Daniel,
Aye.
Ted Vickers,
Aye.
Hal Milburn,
Aye.
Nancy Wolf.
Aye.
Okay.
Next on our agenda is we're gonna have discussion, recharge area ordinance by director. Jeremy Parsons, would you come up, Jeremy?
All right, well, good evening and thank you for your time. This has been a unique, interesting, educational process that has been truly a team effort. And I want to you're not gonna give me 5 minutes, right? Oh, I knew you were gonna say something. I could probably do it. But I do want to introduce our team. Tim Shovey is here with Cochran Engineering. Cochran does a lot of our third-party engineering. We've got Rhonda with MDC, Missouri Department of Conservation. We've got Cameron Smith, if you've ever met him, he's kind of a stickler. Megan's been helping a lot on this as well. this is one of those things that's truly a collaborative effort. We are coming together regarding some development that has occurred on the northeast side of town. And I always had a coach that used to say, sometimes controversy creates clarity. So sometimes you got to go through the tough times to figure out how to avoid those in the future. And we understand as a community that this is a treasure. Small and Cave is an absolute treasure to this community. I understand it's out in the county, but we also understand that development patterns are shifting to the north and east. That's where people want to be. They want to be close to Ozark and they want to feel like they're in the country. But we're blessed to have this. I was just looking at this today. Just since March, we've had 17.3 inches of rain. To see the transformation that the cave has gone through in the last 3 months after that dry period is just amazing. But we've got some updates on the cave. I want to start off with our goal. If I can get this to work. Yeah. You know, when we're writing ordinances, and what we're doing this evening is just trying to get discussion and trying to get a general feedback or a nod to say, yes, go down this road, make this an ordinance. What we're trying to do is protect a pretty environmentally sensitive area. What we do upstream and what we call the recharge area has impacts on Small and Cave. And we certainly don't want to do anything that negatively impacts Small and Cave. In fact, we want to mitigate negative impacts. So I think we've come up with some good direction with that combined feedback to figure out a way to protect these vulnerable areas. I was just sent these 3 pictures over the weekend by Kevin with Small and Cave. They're constantly doing studies in there. They're constantly getting, MSU and other universities in there. And we have some amazing environmental features, but not only that, the ecosystem, it supports very rare native species that can only be found right here in the Ozarks. So it's something that's cool. And this has been fun. You know, we kind of inherited this from the previous director but previous supervisor over the basically natural resources. And we needed to carry this across the finish line. And that's what we hope to do tonight. But if any of y'all haven't been up there, I know one year, I think it was 2014, we actually did a P&Z tour and Kevin gave us a tour up there and it was just eye-opening. I've done it about 6 times since then. And every time I learned something new. And especially the Native American history up there, it's just fascinating. That was a sacred site for the Osage. I mean, that's saying a lot when you designate something a sacred site. But primarily what we're looking at is certain species that we want to protect. And it really boils down to it. We want to try to prevent sediment and pollutants from migrating into that watershed. So that's what this is all about. We did a full-on study, Small and Cave recharge study. Wonderful group out of Missouri here that does work all over the nation and I think throughout the world. Ozark Underground completed the study and we were able to get a grant for that. And then the city paid the other part of it, but just eye-opening. So what it showed us was, hey, you've got this entire recharge area, and I'll try to point out some landmarks for you so you can kind of see where we're at. But up here is Waterford. You can kind of see the coving of the streets. Over here, we've got Chanticleer, and then you've got new development coming out in this area. You got Grand Haven, and then this is the new development from Northtown Park. Look at all of the undeveloped areas out there. The Stein property, which is highly primarily out here in the yellow, is just prime for development. And what we've got to do is make sure that we learn the lessons from Northtown Park and we protect this amazing asset that we have for the community. So when they did this Small and Cave recharge area study, they identified certain areas that are vulnerable, very vulnerable, highly vulnerable, extremely vulnerable. All these classifications are right in here. And then when we drilled down a little bit on these, you can see what we're up against. It's it's a double-edged sword. The karst topography that we have around here is what makes it so beautiful. But it also opens us up to these pollutants and sediment. And if we don't protect those correctly, we're going to continue to see those types of materials migrate into our streams. And in this case, into our cave network. So it's pretty simple. We just want to protect the corridors and the recharge area that feeds this specific area. And I'll say this, I think this is the first of many. We've got an embarrassment of riches around here. Garrison Springs is just, to see what's going on down there and to see some of the efforts that have taken place. How many downtowns can you walk for 3 minutes and get into just something that makes you feel like you're out in the sticks? I mean, there's nothing more beautiful. So our intent is to work with people, and Kevin walked in. Kevin's the owner. No, you're fine, Kevin. And jump in when I put my foot in my mouth. But Kevin Bright's the owner of Small and Cave, and has been working with us step by step over the last couple months to identify this. Helped us find Ozark Underground, helped us come up with these different methodologies to help protect. And it is, a lot of this stuff is simple, but some of this stuff is the impact that we can have on it. And I want to stress this, in a situation where you've got an environmentally sensitive area, being proactive is key, because trying to remediate any damage that occurs in these areas is exponentially harder to do than just to prevent it on the front end. So that's our goal here as this continues to develop, and you'll see some of the steps that we want to take. A lot of this, again, it's the material that migrates in here. These are simple things that we can do. And Tim could speak in more detail about these, but we came up with these to basically trap the sediment. One of the things that we heard over and over from Dave Woods, who's with Ozark Underground, is also making sure that we're finding the proper locations for our detention ponds. Common sense goes to the lowest point, right? That means you've got to do the least amount of grading. But if that lowest point is one of these areas that we have identified here, we need to take additional measures to get in there and protect that. And we certainly have to prevent going into any type of losing stream situation. So what you're looking at there is just a small sediment pond that's utilized throughout the development. You're looking at additional buffers. We're looking at things that would help in terms of the filtration process, the ground cover, the things that can help it get cleaned up before it gets into the system. A lot of this can be done with native plants. Some of it can't be. Sometimes you're just going to say, hey, that area is wooded. It's gorgeous. It's got a good root structure. It's got great growth, mature growth. Leave it alone. That's nature's best buffer in some of those areas. But the areas that don't have a buffer, we want to provide some insight and some science behind what we should have as a buffer. The Stein property, let's talk about that. I know we talked about developable areas, but you can see in this area alone, you've got a combination of sinkholes, which are identified with these areas here. And then you've got what we call a blue line stream that identifies a riparian or wet corridor where we have water migrating through. And this actually connects into Turnberry here. So we've identified that those extra blue and extra red that you see on there, that's the buffer. But look at how many sinkholes are on that property alone. So having this study in place to say, as people come in to try to develop these things, to have this in place, again, is proactive. It costs us it's much more efficient on the front end. And I want to say this about Kevin too. I was talking earlier before you came in, sometimes controversy creates clarity. And I think this is one of those cases. And I can say this beyond a shadow of a doubt. Kevin hasn't been shut it down, don't develop. Kevin has been, let's do it right. And I can't agree more. There's going to be some development, and there's also going to be opportunities to not develop by creating conservation easements, by encouraging potentially additional densities, land banking. Transfer of development rights is a big one that we really haven't broken the ice on that yet in this area, but we see it as a potential tool in the future. And that would allow, if you preserve those areas on the Stein property, maybe you give them a density bonus where we are okay with development occurring, an area that's less sensitive. So these are all measures that we can take. We've got some amazing organizations around here too. Between Conservation Department, and again, Rhonda's been every step of the way with us here, providing document after document. Ozark Greenways is a land trust. I don't know if you all knew that. They can bank some of that land and protect it. The JRBP, wonderful organization that is solely dedicated to the James River Basin. And guess what? We're in it. Finley's one of the major tributaries that goes into that. They have been there every step of the way. So between Brent and Tim Smith and all these others that they've been giving feedback, I just feel like we're blessed to have a think tank or a team that is, well, talented besides me. I mean, I'm just up here. So, but we've got all these tools at our disposal. We want to put in an ordinance that allows us to use those tools. We want to use science. We don't want to go into this, shooting from the hip. And again, I want to be able to one day come back with one for Garrison Springs and say, let's do it here too. And any other sensitive areas that we identify. We've got kind of a methodology in place. We know how to study it. We know how to protect it. I hope we keep doing these types of overlay districts, really. And that too is why you're here. After speaking with planning, Megan and Cameron, we feel that these areas can be best protected with an overlay zone. And then that can then kick in all those additional regulations, BMPs, which are best management practices. And some of these best management practices are super simple. I was about as giddy as you can get when we finally got the budget to get that street sweeper. That's one of those simple things that we can put these streets on the route 4 times a year instead of 2 times a year. And the difference that you'll see downstream is amazing. So I can tell you, we fought for that for 4 years, and that thing, if you see it on the road, wave and honk and get excited. No, but it is something that we can do. So there's some simple steps there too. But overlay zone, taking this to the next level, I'll kind of back up. What you all are used to is kind of the statement of intent, the purpose, how we apply these things. Our next step, if we get the nod tonight, is to work with our think tank here and to work with legal and planning to get that ordinance drafted for you. But I want you to see what the intent of it is. And this is it. We're going to do some massaging, but now's the time for discussion. Now's the time for me to zip it. And Kevin or Rhonda, do you want to come up here? Tim, take the mic.
So yeah, the big thing that we're trying to accomplish here is in this sensitive area, just have more stringent design requirements for developers, that the additional buffers, instead of a 20-foot buffer around a sink pit, it would have to be a 50-foot buffers around streams, just to provide that additional areas for water to filter out before it's discharging off of their property and onto somebody else's. That's the main goal that we're trying to accomplish here, and coming up with good ideas to do that is the thing.
Not sure what I'm talking about. And tourist. Well, I'm a tourist because we had a really busy weekend. It was really good. We had a great turnout. And I'm not sure what you've talked about, but this is really exciting to have governmental agencies working together. The Conservation Department involved in it. Ozark Underground Labs. There's so many resources in Southwest Missouri that there's no reason that we can't do something that everybody else is going to want to try to copy. Johnny Morris, he's a local guy. I've never met him personally. He's paid for a lot of my groceries over the years, but and he also advertised, brings people here. So he's I view him as a partner with all of us that's in business in this area. But he always goes and he'll buy something and he'll build this beautiful resource. He'll build a cave, he'll build waterfalls, he'll build all these things. And they're awesome. And people go and see them. And I love when they go to one of those first. A lot of people, they come to the Ozarks the first time and they'll go to one of Johnny Morris's attractions that he's got. And when they come to see ours, they'll say, this is different. They'd been to Johnny's cave, the one that he'd kind of remodeled. You know, he remodeled one down there and definitely opened up a big sinkhole. Some of the issues we definitely don't want up here. There is not enough money to go ahead and do what he did down there with his golf course. That was a pretty serious remodel there, but those are the things that can happen. But when they come to Smallin Cave, what they see is something that's natural, that's pristine, that has been in this area. That was one of the first attractions here. Matter of fact, that has been a home to people since there was elephants running around here, mastodons and woolly mammoths. We find parts of those animals in the cave when we have floods, when the stream, when we do get high water, the gravel shifts around in there and stuff from the past shows up. And the pictures of these animals up here, that bristly cave crayfish, we are the only commercial cave that scientists can say, if you'll go to Smallin Cave, chances are you'll see one of those bristly cave crayfish. Any place else you go to see one of those, you have to go, you got to be committed. I mean, committed, because you're going to have to make a trek to a place that's very dangerous, very inaccessible, and you're going to come out needing to go to the car wash to get in your car. But anyway, Smallin Cave is a clean gravel stream bed. It is a crystal clear stream that flows underneath the ground. And those pictures you see, that crayfish there is in water. That is underwater in the cave, just to give you an idea how clean our water still is in areas around here. Now, we do have silt now, but fortunately, this last rain we've been in a drought for a couple of years. We have had rain circulate some of that silt out. We need a big flood to go ahead and carry the rest of it out, but we definitely don't want to contribute any more to it. But that crayfish, the first time that was ever studied, this is kind of an oddity, was 1863. Anybody know what was the news in Ozark in 1863? Joseph Shelby come up out of Arkansas, heading to Springfield for the second battle. And there was a journal published in St. Louis, some nut came to the Ozarks, went in our cave and was crawling around when all that violence was going on. Everybody was dying, losing everything. But he went and he studied that crayfish and published a journal in St. Louis in 1863. That's the earliest date I know of a crayfish being studied. A nut, you know what kind of idiot would run around in our Civil War in this area, as violent as it was, to go and do that? But also there was some of those crayfish hauled up to the Smithsonian. They were lost. Who'd ever thought the Smithsonian lost everything, but they can't locate those. But going back in the late 1800s, there's always been accounts of those crayfish, and people that grew up in this area, they always talk about going to Smallin Cave and seeing those white crawdads, you know, and how neat that we've got that resource. And they're only found in 9 counties in Missouri and Arkansas. And they're just strictly on the Springfield Plateau here is the only place that particular one is found. And there's a potential that there might be a difference between each one. They might be individual species that just haven't been decided yet. We've also, in 2008, I found 2 blind cavefish being eaten by those crayfish. That's a moral dilemma. They're both species of concern. But anyway, a little crawdad, a salamander and all that, you know, they're not that significant. But when you've got a resource, when you've got that stream, that crawdad and that salamander tells us that we have got a clean stream still with everything that's going on. And there's no reason to lose it. I'm pretty sure if we put our heads together and work together, we can go ahead and we can maintain that crystal clear gravel stream bed in Smallins Cave and still have all the development around. We've got premier real estate. It's not a problem to sell real estate in Ozark. There's never going to be an issue. The only thing that's going to happen in Ozark is it's going to get so scarce it gets too high for anybody to afford it. So I think we ought to capitalize on that first, make sure we present it, you know, go ahead and paint the house and make sure everything is just perfect when it's on the market and get the best out of it. Then you get the citizens that are willing to go ahead and take care of those things too. I don't know if that's off topic or not, but okay. But, and you know, I'm a businessman. My wife and I, this is our family business, and the Ozarks, my family moved here I'm a direct descendant of Squire Boone, Daniel Boone's brother. That's not really a claim to fame. Daniel was the famous one. I'm on the other side of the family. My family came here in the late 1700s and they actually moved down on 11 Point River. And my family had been there forever. But anyway, they were some of the first traders down there with the Indians and everything, married with the Indians and all. But those crystal clear streams down there, they're protected and they're preserved. Now, the drawback to that so much of that ground has been bought up by different departments of the different agencies and stuff, that the economy's been crushed. That's why we moved over to this part of the country, because there was no way to make a living at home. The only hope for my kids when they graduated high school was a government job or a government check. I'm the only one in my family that's not a school teacher, works for the Park Service or works for the conservation or somebody. I'm not employable. So I didn't have that option. So that was why we moved over here. And actually we found an area where there was development along with the resources. And I hate that we lost the economy back there. South Central Missouri, Oregon County is the poorest county in the state. That's my home. That's where my family's from. And you know what? There's no home there anymore because the schools don't have enough money. There's not enough tax base for anything. You've got that in place here. The resource is still here too. So I would just love to see that this area, if we could go ahead and have the best of both worlds, it's definitely doable. And I'm gonna stop there unless somebody's got a question.
That kind of gives you the background and also tells you that, this is a matter of ecotourism as well. We want to draw those people off, not just to see our historic square, but also to see these natural amenities. And man, you can make a day of it. And like I said, if you ever get a chance to go out there, you will learn more in that 45 minutes to an hour. But I also wanted to give the mic to Rhonda and just let her speak. Rhonda Burnett with MDC. And I don't know if you want to switch through, but she's been so helpful through this. So
Well,
nice to her.
thank you. I just had my 19-year anniversary at the Department of Conservation, and this is, I think the best job. I get to go all throughout the state of Missouri and consult with communities like Ozark about how to plan and manage natural resources, and in some cases design with them so that the people who live in the communities benefit as greatly as possible from healthy natural resources, and also don't inadvertently damage them. So I actually have worked with Ozark in the past. I wrote the grant application, the funding proposal to the U.S. Forest Service to help acquire the community forest. And I'm looking forward to the ribbon cutting for that later this summer. Hopefully we'll have some of our prestige employees attend that event. I want to pay Ozark and Christian County a compliment. When I was writing that funding proposal to the U.S. Forest Service, I referenced no fewer than 9 plans that the city, the county, the regional planners, the transportation planners had all had their not little plans, their important plans all had made reference in some way or another to establishing the need for a community forest here. And when you put all those together, you have this one big picture of everybody working towards a common goal. And I think having those plans in existence really made that case to the Forest Service for their funding. One of the plans was an economic development plan, sort of partnered Ozark, Nixa, Christian County. And in the opening page of that plan, it said, we all see the value of jointly planning for natural resources and transportation for the economic benefit of our community. And I got to see that play out. We recently had a meeting about this to brainstorm some tools for this resource. And there were Christian County planners and city planners all in one room working towards a common goal of how can we protect groundwater recharge within this zone that has been identified. And I thought, it wasn't just pretty words on paper. They really meant it. So kudos to everyone on that. But in consulting with communities across the state on similar sort of natural resource management, this is the first one that I've worked on that is really narrowed down to considering an overlay zone for the zoning map. And I really think that these are such beautiful, simple tools that can help you really accomplish quickly and efficiently what you would like to do, which is groundwater protection. And what I really like about this in particular is the possibility that it can be replicated as other recharge zones in the city and in the county are identified. It could simply be, and so perhaps you wouldn't want to call this the Small and Cave recharge area, but maybe just the groundwater protection overlay zone, something more generic that could just be easily applied as more places are identified through studies. So I like that aspect of it. And I like how overlay districts will just say very clearly, here are just the enhanced regulations for this particular area. And it makes it very easy for a developer to have their consultants do the plans to what you would like to see done. I like that. I like that simplicity and that clarity. So I am here as a consultant for all of you. And I appreciate just being able to help with this important initiative, because I do think it's something that, I speak at a lot of conferences. In October, I'll be at the National Conference of the American Society for Landscape Architects talking about conservation tools. And this would be one of those case studies in the future. I'll talk about at conferences. Some of the more innovative ideas that are on the table being considered may not actually be implemented, something like a transfer of development rights. That's not really a common tool you see in Missouri, but just that it's being considered seriously as a potential tool, that is innovative planning in Missouri. And that is something that, I as a voice can help elevate and bring light to when I speak at those state and national conferences. So thank you. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what you all decide to implement, because any protections that are implemented make the case for why state and federal funders should invest more resources into your community. Because if we see that you take what was given and you do something to enhance conservation, it shows us we can invest more. So thank you.
Thank you.
And one last thing, and we'll open it up for discussion, but Rhonda made an excellent point. We're working hand in hand with the county. Because a lot of this property in this area is, I'd say only about 30% of it, really 33.8% of it is in the city at this time. So this would not be nearly as effective if we weren't working with our planning partners at Christian County. If we're all singing off the same sheet of music, we're collectively much stronger. So I'm really proud of the fact that we got Christian County at the table too. So, and that helps us build relationships as planners and public works and all that stuff, and give each other a hard time. But no, this has been exciting. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions, concerns.
I just want to add, and you
Yeah.
mentioned the county, but the county is actually working on drafting regulations as well. So they're not just partnering on ours, but they're also trying to produce their own requirements. So they're wanting to coordinate with the city. So they're pretty consistent from one to the other. That is exciting to get them on board as well.
And then open that up to the rest of the commissioners.
Sure, I had a couple questions. Do we have any, I know because it's early stages, there's a lot of generalities, but are there specific pollutants that we know that we are in need of protection from for the watershed?
So do you want me to take that? Certain pollutants that you're worried about at this.
Is it just silt or is it other material?
You've got parking lots, which brings up.
Mhm.
So you've got chemicals like trichloroethylene. It's a big problem, I'm spraying, but that's probably one thing, whatever. Yeah, come up with, but anyway. The fact that trichloroethylene is basically a break cleaner and dry cleaner. That is the most common thing around. It is very partial thing.
Mhm.
Anything that gets groundwater, and it's, just an illustration, I'm not a scientist. The ancient trichloroethylene, there's been 2 cases shut down all, for fear. Turned out it wasn't necessary, but that trichloroethylene gas is trapped, so some didn't have to go through water. just carry it. Once it's in the ground, it travels to the ground, it goes every well. That's a big cost. Yeah, I think. Maybe I thought on state plans would be ahead. That's in all these. And everything that we're using, we're starting to learn a little more all the time. All that stuff is beyond the ground. Travel, you know, so there's all those things. And there's nothing wrong with water flowing into a cave system. The main thing, the cars, Harrison Springs, change the way the drainage, you start funneling things, start using it for stormwater drainage, you'll literally blow things out, and that's when.
Right.
Don't start to period all landscape.
Right.
Weak spots. So it's not just the chemicals, it's about, which is a very serious concern. There's parking lots, that all needs to be built before you can.
Right.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Sure, yeah. Also, for an overlay district like this, when we're talking about, you know, overlaying different regulations, I guess my question is there anything that we know of right now that would need to go above and beyond any current environmental requirements for development? And if so, you know, I wouldn't see how that wouldn't be helpful in a general sense. Are there anything, you know, as any of the developments that are currently in there that have environmental requirements, what kind of, again, I know it's early, what kind of, you know, requirements are we talking about?
I think we have really identified the most beneficial to, you know, filtering that out. And nature does a wonderful job of it if you allow it to do that. And I think we're also on the front end. Relatively, there's still a lot of undeveloped land out there.
Right.
So I think we're getting in front of it somewhat. And we're not faced with the same situation as some of the other caves where you've got real environmental concerns. This is a concern, but it's manageable right now. That's what's so neat about this. Let's get it.
Yeah.
So
and then my last question was, are the species in the cave considered indicator species by MDC?
So Kevin would know more about that than I am.
Oh,
I'm
okay.
a wildlife biologist.
Sure, yeah.
I prefer to work with the people.
Gotcha. Okay.
The crystal cave breakaway, line cave, new species of concern.
Sure.
There are. I'm just gonna leave it at that. I hate to go too far.
Sure.
It's details. There's very little known about cave.
Right.
It's very unusual. For the cave state, we have one show cave, it's a really state. That crystal cave breakaway up there, scientists still don't know how long it live. They don't know. I took a photo of one today in 2009 and it never been documented before. So there's still a lot of the blind pig salmon, they're a great indicator. Salmon is a great indicator of water quality. Water dogs,
right.
Here are places. Blind pig salmon, they're born eyes, gills, and skin color. And they change, they adapt to darkness. They actually, the skin will grow over their eyes, the eye will itching and go into their body. And they'll lose their gills and they'll go back and have the darkness reset to the cave. That's the only known species of animal in the world that adapts to darkness. Any other blind pig that is born. There's been a lot of DNA studies now, doing a lot of DNA testing, environmental DNA. Our cave has actually been a study. Missouri Western Doctor actually for years has done breakthrough surveys, and we've got a lot of that selected over years. So every change, we're going to know. So there's a lot of monitoring to do that, and there's really not a lot known. I don't know if that answers the questions.
Sure.
Because there are so many questions in science.
Right. Okay, great.
any other?
You're dealing right now with the what plans are there to deal with any kind of water table fluctuations? Is there some kind of a long-term, does the county have any plans to restrict commercial wells in the vicinity around?
Yeah, so we're actually doing a lot of long range proactive planning on not just a county level, but on a regional level. I think there will be a day, and we just saw this with this latest drought. We saw our aquifer drop extremely low. We have a monitoring well right over here on Selmore. And we know that there will be a day that as development continues, we are going to have to limit the amount of wells that are poked into our aquifer. I picture it as just a bunch of straws going into the same glass of water. You get more straws, it's going to draw it down sooner. So what we're working on right now is coming up with ways to make our water usage more efficient. So conservation is a big one. You'll see that over the summer. We're going to preach conservation. And then at the same time, we're going to do long range planning. The city of Ozark is a member of the Tri-State Water Well, it used to be called Tri-State. It's now Southwest Missouri Water Coalition. We are in the process of getting a reallocation of surface water all the way from Stockton that will help as we continue to develop. So we're putting conservation programs in place. We were just able to pass a drought recovery process that we just passed last fall that restricts certain amount of usage during certain times, and you can actually be penalized because it's a real thing to us. We've never seen the aquifers drop this low at this time of year. Now, this last 17.3 inches over the last 3 months, that's great, but it's going to take it a while to rebound and get back up there. So I guess to answer your question, we're doing short range things, and we're also working on those 50-year visions as well. And I'm happy to say that Ozark is part of that 50-year vision. We're one of the partners in Southwest Missouri Water Coalition.
I don't have questions maybe per se, maybe more comments. So when we kind of look at Ozark as a whole, Johnny Morrison put the big investment in there. You mentioned earlier that we have the forest thing that's coming, I think that why not Ozark become, just kind of help, we're cutting edge in this industry, ecotourism, as Kevin said, ecotourism is such a huge thing. I don't know if anyone else was on the road. It was so busy with cars, just people going down to the lake. And, I feel like that, when we look into the surrounding communities of Springfield, Ozark, this is an opportunity, is another thing to say, hey, Ozark is just kind of setting this, setting the bar forward and kind of being proactive on this thing. And I just think, so I think the way that you presented it, I definitely think it's something that's necessary because we know that we're growing. We had just small houses today. What do we do? Like 24, 26, but most of our meetings, we have tons. So, I definitely think we need to be proactive with this. And I think we need to get ahead of it because as you said, I think it was a Stein property. That's going to come pretty soon. So, I appreciate it, Kevin. I appreciate your answering all the questions. So I think that's been very helpful. I know I've not been a small and K before, so I will definitely tell you that you'll see me and my kids there probably in the next week or two. I definitely think that we need to, I'm glad that you brought this to our attention because I definitely think it's something we need to go on. So.
And Kevin, get ready. His son is one of the most inquisitive young men I've ever met in my life. We took him on a tour of the sewer plant, and I've never seen anybody get so excited about sewer. But no, I thank you for saying that. I think it is cool that we're taking these proactive steps forward and that we can be cutting edge so that Rhonda can go to these conferences and say, hey, they did this. And now they're thinking about this. And yeah, ecotourism is what it's about too. Protecting, highlighting, and quite frankly, capitalizing on, again, our embarrassment of riches. That's what it comes down to.
Thanks, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional questions?
So quick, Jeremy, thanks for a great job on the proposed standards. I want to thank you and your team for all the work you've done putting this together. I want to kind of build on what Adam asked, just kind of a question. What impact, if any, would these guidelines have, once they're adopted on that Stein farm? Will it change the way they farm that land?
Not the farming at this point. Right now, the agricultural use is permitted. What it would do is, let me see if I can find that. really dive into as things develop, you create more of a buffer or protection from that. Now, that doesn't stop myself and others from going to them and saying, hey, do you want to apply for conservation easements? Do you want to keep this in the family? But right now, just having those extra protective measures in place will help tremendously down the road. And we caught it in time. Again, like we're developing, but we still have these opportunities to be proactive. So
Is Stein a beef or dairy?
I think right now it's crops. Is the Stein property all crop? Alfalfa?
Good.
Yeah. Yeah. So anything else?
And I think the goal is at next meeting is maybe ask the commission for action on an ordinance, a drafted ordinance, where we'll try to get stuff to you as quick as we can, but we're quickly proceeding with drafting these regulations. So I think the hope is that at the next meeting, if the commission is willing to take action, and we'll figure out what section it falls in the ordinance section, but it will be in chapter 400, I believe.
Yeah.
I'll start sitting everything now.
No, we want to strike while the iron's hot. We've got a good group of proactive thinkers, and sometimes you don't have this opportunity. So we need to get in here and make hay while the sun's shining, so to speak.
Yep. I just want to make a comment that I fully support it, because what's the saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of correction. So very supportive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Okay, any additional comments, questions, discussion from the commission? Any? Everybody happy? Cameron, administration?
Yeah, so a couple things under administration, training opportunities. We're gonna work with the city attorney to see about having the commission in another training session at the next meeting. I'd like to ask the commission, is that something you want to do during the regular scheduled meeting? You want to do it like an early meeting or some special meeting? We've talked about maybe a training session for Baldwin that might be at an early morning type meeting. Just want to get the thoughts from the commission on what you'd like to see.
I would just love stuff if it's not during the day. Like the summertime's different, but like so many things I want to come to, but it's just I can't during the day. So like, I mean, I know we took that tour a couple years back and that was an evening, but like I know at least for me, like evenings are much more flexible. I know I don't know, everyone else may have more daytime availability, but evening definitely better. I would definitely make anything in the evenings.
I think with the 7 o'clock meetings, there's, time beforehand easily, or even a special meeting.
What time before, like, we're thinking the next meeting may have some items on the agenda. If you say before that, is if we met at 5:30, is that too early? 6 o'clock?
I could do 5:30.
Okay.
I'm good.
So we might look at doing a 5:30. That gives us an hour for that and then maybe a transition period. So we'll work with our attorney and see if we can get that set up for 5:30 at the next meeting.
Okay. General mixed use ordinance update?
Yes, staff is anticipating bringing you a draft of a revision to our general mixed use ordinance. We've used it for the first time. And we found a correction we'd like to make. It's a small correction, but just to give you a heads up on that correction. We've had some questions in the past about when it's a residential use and the general mixed use. So the correction that we're going to propose is either something to the effect of, if you're proposing a residential use, there shall be a non-residential use as well. Or the proposal would be a residential use cannot be the only use on the parcel. So that's a small change. What we've seen is in some cases are utilizing the general mixed use to primarily get some multifamily residential with just a little snippet of maybe some commercial or something or office. But staff would like to propose a revision to require a non-residential use in all residential proposals.
Okay, good. Any other business that needs to be?
That's all I've got.
You're good. Okay. Commissioner, are you good?
Go to make sure you go out, guys, the duck races and stuff out there. I mean, that's a great thing. And then if you get, we have some great stuff downtown, you know, I always like to promote the city, but definitely the duck races, there's some great things out there. And we had that event over the weekend that was downtown that was great. So.
Thank
So, yeah.
you.
I'll move to adjourn if no one else
Then
has.
that was my next- Okay. Second, okay, everybody in favor, say aye. Everybody, aye.
Hey, you want us to change this for you?